You can check out MrKlaff.com for free flashcards and review sheets. So, in 476 AD, you have the fall of Rome. Shortly thereafter, you have the beginning of the Middle Ages, a time period from roughly 500 to 1500. During this time, in 800, Charlemagne is crowned. In 1054, you have a schism, and the Eastern Orthodox religion goes to the Byzantine Empire. In the West, you have Catholicism. In 1066, William the Conqueror takes over England. 1095, that's the First Crusade or Holy War between Christianity and Islam. From 1337 to 1453, that's the 100 Years' War, and in 1348, that's the year where the bubonic plague arrives in Europe. During the Renaissance period from roughly 1350 to 1550 AD, you have a lot of art and literary achievements. In 1503, it's the Mona Lisa, 1513, Machiavelli's The Prince, and learning spreads with the invention of Gutenberg's printing press. In 1492, Columbus discovers America. That starts the age of exploration as well as mercantilism. In 1517, Martin Luther hammers the 95 Theses, thereby starting the Protestant Reformation. Let's talk about some wars and conflicts. 1618 to 1648, you have the 30 Years' War caused by religion. In 1642 to 1649, you have the English Civil War. During this time period, the power of the monarch is decreasing. There are 3 documents to know. 1215 is the Magna Carta, 1679 the Habeas Corpus Act, and in 1689 you have the Bill of Rights. 1 year before, it's the Glorious Revolution. All of this limited the king's power and created a constitutional monarchy. Other conflicts to know about include the 7 Years' War, and of course in 1789 you have the French Revolution. That starts with the Bastille being stormed. That same year you have the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Shortly thereafter, Napoleon takes over with a coup d'etat. During Napoleon's reign, you should know about the 1804 Haitian Revolution. In addition, in 1805, you have the Battle of Trafalgar, where Napoleon is inefficient in taking over Britain. In 1812, he makes his worst mistake ever, the invasion of Russia, gets banished to Elba, escapes for 100 days, and then ultimately loses in the Battle of Waterloo. Around the same time, you have the Congress of Vienna, which has to decide how to redraw the map of Europe after Napoleon's downfall. In 1848, a series of revolutions takes over Europe. That same year, the publishing of the Communist Manifesto. In 1859, Darwin publishes his very controversial theory of evolution, and then from 1870 to 1871, it's the Franco-Prussian War. Let's talk about the age of imperialism, where strong nations were dominating weaker ones. One case in particular was the Berlin Conference, where Africa was carved up by the European powers. 1856, you have the Crimean War. In addition, in 1857, it's the Sepoy Mutiny. The First Opium War ended in 1842. In addition, in 1899, you have the Open Door Policy. The following year is the Boxer Rebellion. In 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry opened up Japan for trade. Shortly thereafter, you have the Meiji Restoration, where Japan is going to modernize. With this new technology, from 1904 to 1905, they win the Russo-Japanese War. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in 1914, it kicked off World War I. It ends in 1918. The Treaty of Versailles is 1919. Remember, the Russians drop out in 1917 with the Bolshevik Revolution. They fight a civil war from 1918 to 1921, and ultimately, the USSR is founded. The same year is the March on Rome, where Mussolini takes power. In 1923, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk's Turkey is declared a nation. In 1928, you have Stalin's 5-year plan. 1931, Japan invades Manchuria. And then, in 1933, Adolf Hitler takes power. In 1935, you have the Nuremberg Laws and ultimately the beginning of the Holocaust in 1938 with Kristallnacht. In 1936, Mussolini takes over Ethiopia. And in 1938, you also have the Munich Conference, where Hitler takes the Sudetenland in a form of appeasement. In 1939, you have a non-aggression pact which will be broken by Hitler. In addition, that year, World War II begins with the invasion of Poland. During World War II, you should know about 1941 being Pearl Harbor, and the turning point of the war is 1944 with D-Day. In 1945, the atomic bomb is dropped and the war ends. Shortly thereafter, you have the Nuremberg trials. After World War II, you have the partition of India in 1947. 2 years later, Mao Zedong takes over in the People's Republic of China. China becomes communist. From 1945 to 1991, you have the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, two superpowers. You should know about, in 1947, the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. A year later, you have the Berlin Airlift. From 1950 to 1953, it's the Korean War. And in 1962, that's the year of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Other conflicts to know about include the Vietnam War from 1954 to 1973. The Berlin Wall went up in 1961 and came down in 1989. And in 1991, the collapse of the Soviet Union after the failed August coup. You need to know about the conflicts in the Middle East, the Suez Crisis, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War, and then a little bit of peace in 1978 with the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. Then the next year, you have the Iranian Revolution. Let's talk about Africa between 1948 to 1994. The Rwandan genocide was in 1994. Between 1948 to 1994, it's apartheid, where there's segregation between the blacks and whites in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was released from prison in 1994 and later rose to power. For more information on all of these dates, you can subscribe to this channel for more review videos. For more review, you can get free flashcards and review sheets at MrKlaff.com. We also invite you to check out Noble Review in both paperback and ebook formats. Best of luck on your tests.